Hello everyone, today we'll be unboxing another figurine for the week. Here we have is a figure from the distributor Good Smile Company, from the manufacturer Max Factory. A figurine part of their Figma action figures line is a articulated figure of the character Akira Sato from the series the Fable or the Fable. As always, before we take the figurine out of its packaging, just in case you didn't know, the Fable or The Fable is a manga series serialized in Kodansha's weekly Young magazine in 2014 by the mangaka Katsuhisa Minami, who also worked on another series called Naniwa Tomoare in 1999. The Fable has a sequel manga called The Fable: The Second Contact, published in Young magazine in 2021, and another continuation manga called The Fable: The Third Secret in 2025. There's also an omake or an extra released in 2018 by the same mangaka. The series has gotten an anime adaptation in 2024 by the same name, the Fable, by Studios Tezuka Production, consisting of 25 episodes. So here we have is Akira Sato, or The Fable, the Hitman in an articulated figure form. This is the box rotating in 360, so without holding you guys back, so let's take the Fable out of his packaging and see how he looks. So here we have is Akira Sato, or the Fable, straight out of its packaging. And just like every other figurine that we unboxed, we do have this protective plastic around the main figurine to protect the figurine from getting, avoiding any damages or scrapes on the paint. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But as you can see here, just like with other figurines, we do have interchangeable faces. And also, as you can see here, we have an extra bag that comes with the display, or should I say the base stand, the arm, and also these other interchangeable hand sculpts. So let's just remove all of this out of its packaging and see how the figurine looks up close. So here we have, just like with every other figurine, and also including this articulated figure, we do have an assembly instructions guide, or basically a guide, showing you how to handle the figurine. And as you can see here, there's actually double-sided, where you see one side here is all English text, and on the other side it does have Japanese text. So if you don't know Japanese, you do have this English side that you can also read. And if you are Japanese, you have the other side that you can read. And if you don't understand either or, I think they're a little bit simplistic of how to handle the figurine, so there's nothing really too difficult to follow. What you do get is a little bit step by step of how each part works, how you change the hand sculpt, or should I say the hand sculpt, the interchangeable weaponry, and also the back is also something similar what we saw on the opposite English side, where you do see is the text the same way, but it's just translated into Japanese. But you can pause the video, whatever side you want to see, and you can read it yourself. I'm not gonna dive too far into that because we want to move on to see the actual figurine. So again, you can pause the video if you need to. So we're gonna move on to the next part of the figurine. I did also want to include, just like we get with other Figmas, we do get is this plastic bag where you can put all the accessories into. I just wanted to show you guys this. So here we have is the Figma's base, and as you can see here, it's a lot similar to the other bases we get from Figma. It does have a bit of a rough top finish towards the top portion, but at the bottom, like we see with other figurines, we do have this text here of information such as the mangaka, and also other information such as the title and made in China and other stuff. But as you can see here, the bottom is for more of a glossy finish and is actually translucent like we see with other figurines that come with acrylic base. And as you can see here, like I said earlier, it does have a bit of groove on the top portion of it because there's no insert hole where you connect the figurine's legs onto. It's just a flat surface and you're not gonna see any inserts. This one insert hole here is actually for the arm. Like we usually see when we get a articulated figure, they do give you like an extra arm handle that you can stand the figurine rather than having it with a peg on the foot, because this is articulated, so it'd be easier to pose it in different type of poses when using this arm here. And you can see here there's a little insert here, does disconnect, and you can connect it in any position. It's a little bit of a certain pattern, so you can't like smoothly turn it. You're gonna have to take it off and reposition it if you want to angle in a certain direction. But just for the video, we're gonna keep it like this, and we're gonna just keep them standing up just to showcase the figurine. So let's just move on to the actual figurine. So here we have is the actual figurine of Akira Sato, and just like we do with every other figurine, we're going to be starting off here from the bottom of his shoe. And as you can see here, he does not have any insert holes like I stated in the beginning, because his base has an arm. He doesn't have anywhere to stand, so he's going to be propped up a little bit differently than when we see with other figurines. And because this is an articulated figure, you do see he does have actual joints around his body, you know, so you can pose him in different angles. And as you can see here, you could move his foot side by side, front and back. His toes also angle a little bit awkwardly forward and also straight up, you know, just like a regular foot would be, which is actually, you know, really nice to have a little bit of more variety of how to pose with these articulated figures. But the sculpt actually looks pretty nice. I think they added a lot of detail in it. The shoe kind of reminds me of a Reebok shoe, but I think that's not a brand in the show. I think it's its own, you know, to avoid copyright. But as you can see here, going straight to his leg portion, instead of having a ball joint, he has more of a like a little bit of a what do you call this type of a leg? It's almost like a, you could move it back and not too much forward, but it's not really a ball joint. It's more of a sculpt where you can just move it in certain directions rather than, you know, any position you can. So they are kind of limited to how you can pose it from his leg portion because of this. So I think it would have been a little bit better if it had like a ball joint. But that's just other figurines, and I think Figma's are a little bit different. But you can see the sculpt looks actually pretty nice. You could move his arms from side to side, and here we get is a better view of his hip area. And I don't know if you can tell from here, but it's actually 3 layers. There's a top portion here, a bottom middle section, and then the hip at the bottom. So it's actually 3 separate pieces connected to make this look that you see here, which is actually pretty detailed. You can see the sweater actually has a bit of texture around it, which actually looks pretty nice. Here's the backside of his leg area here where you prop it up here. You could move his hips, but it kind of looks a little bit awkward because you can see the sculpt only goes a certain around his leg, so you can kind of see it more, a little bit more exposed from the joint, which is a little bit weird. But again, it's not too much to complain because it gives it a lot more flexibility, but not too much because of the limitation of how you can pose this. You can only pose it in certain ways, but it's still pretty cool that you're able to pose it in, you know, the front and all the way back compared to, I think, another figurine that I've unboxed before, if I remember. But the texture work around his sweater looks pretty nice. I actually really do like it. Here's the insert hole here where you connect that little arm that from the base onto him to have him standing up. And as you can see here, a closer look at one of his arms, it does have a ball joint there where you can actually move it from side to side in any direction, so you have more flexibility on the arm rather than what we saw on his leg area, which I feel like they could have done it for his legs, but realistically you're not going to be posing your whole leg in certain directions, so I can see why they did that. I also noticed the ball joint here is a little bit exposed, so you can kind of see a little bit more from the front area. You see he has his default hand sculpt there where it's a closed fist, where you could actually rotate it in 360. And looking up close with this sculpt, the hand actually looks pretty detailed. Not too noticeable when it comes to the fingers, but that's because he has a closed fist. But regardless, it still looks actually quite detailed. Here with his other arm sculpt, it's kind of similar to what we saw with the other one. You could rotate it around. It does have a ball joint there. Just be careful because as you see here, it's kind of easy to pop out some of the joints. So do be careful when you are moving the figurine around. And as you can see here, his collar is actually a little bit flexible. So rather than a thick or like a strong PVC, they gave it more flexibility when it comes to the neck portion. So you don't really need to worry too much of, you know, the neck or the chin hitting the collar area. I think it's a pretty nice idea. And you could move the head back and forward, but not too much, because like I said earlier, you could pop out the head easily. So do be careful when you are moving the head around. And here's a closer look on this mask area here, where it's the Fable, because Akira's wearing his mask, so he's in the Fable mode. And I actually really do like the way this looks. And there's also a cool little feature that this does come with, but I'll be showing you guys later in the video. But as you can see here, the same texture work we get on the sweater. It's a little bit different from the mask area, but it has its own texture work. But I really do like the way it looks. It kind of looks pretty cool. And as I stated earlier, the cool little feature that this does have is that when you remove his front face, just like this, you can actually pose his eyeballs here from the inside. Something that we see with other figurines that I've unboxed. It's actually pretty cool. You get this little piece here that has like almost like a little screw, and it has a little plus there where you connect it to the eyeball, and from this little area you can actually position his eyeballs in, you know, whatever direction you want to. So there's no, it's like a little free way you can, you know, position it any way. I feel like they should have done this with the other facial sculpt. You'll see what I'm talking about later, but it kind of gives it, like, you can see I can pose him in certain, I can have his eyes posed in different direction. Overall, it's a pretty nice figurine. A little bit simplistic, but it's actually pretty cool. I feel like they should have went with more of a darker black rather than a grayish tone that it kind of has. I feel like it could have been better if it was a little bit more black like we see in the show. But it's still a pretty nice figurine, so we're going to move on to the next accessories that the figurine comes with. So here is the extra head sculpt you do get, and as you can see here, he has a similar ball joint by his neck area where it connects to his neck, and you can see his hair is actually quite flexible where you can move it front and back, so it gives it more of a easier way to not have it, you know, streak against the neck when you rub paint around it, if you've seen that in other figurines. And as you can see here, this is Akira Sato version rather than him wearing the mask, and I think they did a pretty nice job with his face. I think they did a great paint work on his eyes. His hair sculpt looks actually really nice. Again, the only downside to this is that you can't really pose his face or his eyeballs. I feel like it could have been better if so you can have his eyes also move in just like we got with his mask, but I can see why they didn't do that. The only thing flexible here is his back of his hair, but his face here actually is interchangeable, so I will be showing you guys that. So before we do that, let's just connect his regular default head onto his body. So you actually have to remove the front facial sculpt here, which is actually a little bit tedious, but once you have it popped off, this is how it would look like when you have it disconnected. And from here you could interchange his face into two other versions. So here we have his thinking face. If you've seen it from the show when he taps his forehead to think, it's actually a pretty funny face. I kind of really like this little accessory of having his face with this, you know, thinking. It kind of looks, you know, pretty dumb, but if you've seen the show, you know why he does this face. But I think they did a pretty nice sculpt work here on his face, especially his chin and his little mouth, and I think it looks pretty nice. And connecting it like this, it would actually complete the whole facial sculpt. It actually looks pretty funny. I kind of really like this because it gives it a little bit more expression onto him that we don't really see with other figurines. So let's just connect this head sculpt to the body, and I'm gonna show you guys the other facial sculpt that this does come with. This is face sculpt C, or the laughing facial sculpt, and is also an interchangeable face that you do connect to the main head of Akira, which is actually pretty funny. This is actually the most expressive face that we got with the figurine, and I really do like this one because you can see he has the little teary eye because he's laughing at one of the comedians from the universe, or the Fables in universe, which is actually pretty funny. I actually really like this face, and it might be my default of how I have him propped up, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, but it's really expressive, and it's a lot of detail, including his little tongue, his teeth, his cheeks propped up because of his open mouth, and it's actually pretty funny. I actually really like this facial sculpt. So let's just connect this to the main body. So here we have his sculpt B, C, and D. According to the instructions guide here, all lined up together. So these are all the swappable Akira Sato faces. While also having his default fist sculpts, we also get his other interchangeable hand sculpt. And as you can see here, he has a couple of them, but don't worry, we'll get a closer look of that. So you can see here, this is his default hand closed fist. So we're going to be swapping out with each of these hand sculpts to show you a little bit better of a look. So here is the first hand sculpt. As you can see here, is actually one of his positions where he's tapping his head when he's thinking with that other face that we saw earlier. You only get one of these, which is a little bit weird. I feel like they should have gave you for both left and right, but you only get one of these hand sculpts, while the other hand here in the back is when he's holding his gun. So you only get one of those for each hand sculpt, which it's a little bit weird. I feel like they should have get it for both left and right, but you only get one of these, one of each. So here's the other hand sculpt where it's almost like some semi-closed hand. I think this is number 4 in part 9 according to the assembly instructions guide, and it's actually a little bit detailed, but mostly on the palm. The fingers nails on the hand is a little bit like, it's not noticeable unless you look close to it, but I feel like they should have made the nails a little bit more detailed. But you can see here you do get 2 matching for the both left and right arm. So I guess that's pretty which is pretty cool compared to the other hand sculpts. So here's the more of the open palm hand sculpt, which I think according to the box this is the one where he's clapping. This is numbers 3 and 8 for the both left and right. So, and as you can see here, it's more of an open palm, which this one's actually pretty cool. It has a little bit more detail to it and more detail on the nail, so you do get more nails. Also the wrinkles on the front of his palm there, which looks a lot more detailed. And as I stated, you get 2 pairs of these, so you can have them both for the left and the right, which is pretty cool and pretty neat compared to the first sculpts that we saw. So here is the more of the closed open palm hand sculpt, which I think is numbers 2 and 7 according to the assembly instructions guide. I don't really think you use this hand sculpt for anything, but because of the way it's kind of gripping, it makes it a little bit easier, so you can hold on to specific items. If you have like a broom or something similar to that you can slide it onto that hand sculpt. But as you can see here, the detail work on it looks actually pretty nice, and you do get it both for the left and the right. matching both hands, which compared to the other parts that we didn't get in the first hand that we saw. And lastly, this is hand sculpt number 1 and 6, which are more of a hold gesture, because this is the hand sculpt you use to connect the little switchblade or the little pocket knife that the figurine does come with, that I'll be showing you guys later. Again, this is pretty. I like the way they give you for the both left and right, so it's like matching both left and right hand sculpts, but they didn't do that for the gun, which I find weird. I feel like both left and right hand should have been able to hold the gun, but I mean, I guess is what we get, right? But it's pretty neat that they gave us for the both left and right. So these are all the hand sculpts side by side, and as you can see here, this is how it will look and for their matching pairs. So here is the switchblade, or should I say the pocket knife, and as you can see here, it's actually pretty tiny, no jokes, but you can see here they did actually a pretty nice job. It's actually quite detailed for how small this is. You can see it does have a little silver on it, and as you can see, it also has a little handle there where you have it connected to your pocket, which is actually pretty nice detail. It actually looks pretty sharp and actually is quite pointy, and it does feel like you can actually poke yourself with this. So do be careful when you are handling this. As you can see from my palm here, it's actually quite small, but it does have a lot of detail to it, and it's actually pretty nice. Again, it's actually a little bit sharp, not sharp enough to poke a hole onto this glove, but it's actually like pointy enough that it like hit your skin a little. So do be careful when you are handling this. And this blade does go with this hand sculpt number 1 or 6. Either or, you can connect the blade just like this. And here we have is the gun, which I think is letter E according to the assembly instructions guide, and it actually is quite detailed, a lot more bigger than the switchblade or the pocket knife that it does come with. And there's a lot of detail to this, like we see with other figurines, and they do a lot of great detail work on the guns. I don't know which type of brand gun this is, I'm not a gun head, but as you can see here, it does have a little silencer on the top portion because he is a hitman and he's trying to be sneaky. So it's a plus that they also gave you a little silencer on it. You can't take off the silencer, so it's like a full connected piece, but I don't really mind. It makes it easier so you don't lose the the two separate parts. But it actually is quite detailed, and this hand sculpt, or this gun, actually connects to hand sculpt number 5. Again, you only do get this for the right hand. I don't know why, but it's only connected to that piece, which is actually, again, looks pretty detailed. Again, it's actually a pretty nice detailed work that they did on this gun. So here we have is the entire interchangeable and also accessories that the figurine does come with. So as you can see here, this is how it will look when you lay it all down together. So this is just something if you guys wanted to see all the parts in one section. So with that, that's going to be the end of this one. That'll complete the entire unboxing of Akira Sato, or the Fable. Alright guys, so that was Good Smile Company's Max Factory Figma action figure of the character Akira Sato, or the Fable, from the series the Fable, or the Fable. All in all, I gotta say is it's actually a pretty cool, unique figurine. I actually really love the way this looks. I kind of feel like though it should have been a little bit more darker in tone. It's more of a gray rather than a black like we see in the show or in the manga. I kind of feel like it should have been a lot more darker than this lighter gray. The mask looks really amazing. I do like the way you can position his eyes in any direction. That's actually a really great part of the figurine. I feel like they should have done that with the other facial sculpts, or should I say the regular default face, because I think it would have been cooler to see that regular face have his eyes also turn. Obviously not the other interchangeable face where he's laughing or thinking. I think those would have been nice the way they are. I just think his regular default face should have also had the option where you can move his eyeballs left and right. His hand sculpt with the gun should have also came with the for both left and right rather than just for his right. Probably because they didn't have any more slots to place another hand sculpt, so I kind of get why they didn't do that. Besides that, there's not really too much bad I can say. The figure is actually a lot more simplistic because he's also wearing all black. So that's going to be the end of this one, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have not actually seen the Fable, go check it out. It's actually a pretty awesome and amazing series. I know here in the States, I don't really think there's too much people talking about it, but if you know the series, thumbs up for you. But if you have not, go check it out. It's a great, awesome series. So, as I always say, I'm gonna leave you guys off with the figurine rotating in 360 and different angles and also different poses that I can think of. So as always support the original creators for the series of figurines that I unbox. Thank you guys for the support that you guys give me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Go check out the Fable. Great show.
2本理不尽な世界で唯一平等な命無駄にしたくなきゃじっとしろ街もビルも屋上も全て片付ける職業病地下に潜ろうとたとえオフロード散歩するように6秒後 I don't know about myself Don't know about my dream Yeah Hero peace sign 信じてたんだバカみたいにProfessional silent liar Don't just me now 危ない態度純粋な世界 Bye bye baby bye bye いつかは You're mine you're mine Professional eyes and mind in everyday life 危ないよ生かしてくらいそこで Bye bye baby bye bye いつかの I'm mine2択ならもうすでに終わってる気がつかない周りがどう流行りがどうよりさらに加速しなきゃ火がつかないてかお前誰以外答えらんねえ邪魔したところで問題なんねえ Going one way 後悔なんて Professional eyes and mind in everyday life 明日なきお前に愛の光あれ Music music 消えないでまだ I'm mine I'm mine Trouble, I'm the nice best of friends. Need somebody. Daylight and moonlight, let's paint it with love. It's alright, your tears in my trap. We need somebody.今ここまだ流させないエンドラールやることそれは火を灯す決して消えないさ字のごといつもの姿勢でも遠慮しね字幕や説明めんどいぜ居残りででも二度目はねこの人生人よりもプロとして I don't know about myself Don't know about my dream Yeah I want electric King of the city バカみたいにProfessional silent
きれないからはみ出していくその小さい回答よ計算外交の関係クスとキスじゃキスの炎狙い別なキスとキスのモテるとか似てるのレベルとシャイロショーレギュラー版どうしようそもつかない方に転がるでかい石のように 1.579111315 通れないバランスとりあえず集合不揃いなやつらおいでこぼこでも使いよってこと、
卵かけご飯にソースかける街中で見たキス数える変わってる生活遊び方普通が何とかうるせよアドギバ普段は真面目な人にしか全然見えないけど包丁なたとスメスポンと見てなきれアーチ社会に割り切れないはみ出しポンはみ出しちゃうぐらいでかいもん俺ら旗から見りゃいびつな関係引き金引きあった次の日前面割に合わん女子気にちょっとダウンマン皆が皆なんかはみ出た音ナンバー Yeah 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 これなんだ Yeah 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 音ナンバー Yeah 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 これなんだ Yeah 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 音ナンバー
打たれなままここまで来た出る声はみ出し物友じゃなきゃ同じロイ泣いてるやつには貸してあげる手の声飲みそうじゃなく対応する